Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So today we're back again with another episode of our Marvel Concept Champions character breakdowns, and today we're going to be talking about very fundamentally important champion in this game, and it is no other than Archangel. Now Archangel got released in 2017 with varied levels of attention. He has always managed to stay up top, close to the kind of like best champion lists or favorite champion lists, or but just overall the best options for certain fights. And that has always been the case with Archangel, because if opponent is neither poison or bleed immune, he absolutely dominates the competition, and there are so many great fights he can be used for throughout the contest that over the years they have definitely solidified him as one of the cornerstone champions of MCOC, and he frequently gets mentioned as one of the better options for fight X, Y, or Z. Now, he is also making currently a big comeback, in my opinion, due to several reasons. Primarily the fact that Kebab has been paying much more attention to Incinerate, Cold Snap, and Shock immunities, and Bleed and Poison immunities are becoming less frequent, and new champions are getting released. But I'm going to speak about that in a bit more. Now let's jump to my empty wall over here, and as always my goal is going to be to populate it up with all the information I can throw based on Archangel's abilities. So first and foremost, let's start very simple. His name's Archangel, he's a mutant class, he's size medium character, and his main tags are Hero, X-Men, and Metal. Now, interestingly enough, he's also a member of X-Force. However, I do not think it really serves much of an importance in this game, because I haven't seen too many or any, for that matter, events requiring these tags or abilities that would specifically mention X-Force. But all that being said, since he's Metal, he can be affected by Bulwark, defensive node in Alliance War. He is X-Men, therefore he can benefit from those synergies, so on and so forth. And also he is of Hero class, so he can benefit from Nick Fury, so on and so forth. Right, his damage now. His damage output is again divided in two very distinguished kind of like groups. If opponent does not bleed or poison immune, his damage is off the wall, bat crap crazy, because he will bleed or poison and neurotoxin out every single opponent. For very kind of like quick note of the way how Archangel works is basically you want to throw your heavy attacks to place bleeds on opponent, then you want to block a couple of hits or throw some of your special attacks to place poisons on opponent. And if opponent has an active poison effect, whenever you inflict next bleed, then bleed and poison get combined and into a passive neurotoxin effect. And if your Archangel is awakened, that deals also basically passive heal block, reduce opponent ability accuracy, but also more significantly, even unawakened Archangel deals absolute ton of damage via that passive neurotoxin. Now, so if opponent is not bleed or poison immune, damage is up there. If opponent is poison immune but is not bleed immune, damage is still very solid, and that is one of the kind of like many misconceptions about Archangel. If you can bleed the opponent, your damage will still be good. It's not going to be as crazy, obviously, as you can imagine, but I'm going to try and showcase the damage difference between champion where you use Archangel and you have no immunities, and then against a champion who has poison immunity, but you can still bleed the champion, and you can see that fight is still progressing in a very solid pace. Now, if opponent is bleed immune, then your damage is here, and he's bottom of the barrel character with absolutely zero utility, because his entire character model is effectively based on being able to poison or bleed opponents, and his base damage output with that is quite bad, and he has literally no abilities. So then all of a sudden he magically turns effectively into an Iron Patriot. So you do need to know who you bring him up against, which is very important. Again, how he delivers this damage, as I mentioned, bleed, poison, and neurotoxin. Now, as opponent, he's relatively simple. He doesn't have any overly annoying abilities as opponent. However, his animations can be quite tricky because he has these large wings that take up a large portion of screen and can get somewhat confusing. Additionally, his level 1 is not the hardest one to fully dex. However, it involves basically two dexes. First one, he throws like 2 or 3 knives. feather knives or whatever they are, and then a single one following that. The first dex is quite tricky and still quite catches me at times, so quite often I personally prefer either A, to push Archangel to level 2s, or if that is not possible, then most often I just block the first two knives from the level 1 and then dex the last one. But yeah, he is relatively simple. Additional thing to mention though is if you are running Suicide Masteries and if you have a champion that is not poison immune, for instance, and also not bleed immune, and so you have this active poison debuff on you from Liquid Courage, then if you get to make a mistake and Archangel gets to land a combo on you, there is a very solid chance he's going to inflict bleed, thus combining his bleed with your Liquid Courage poison into neurotoxin. You can start taking a lot of damage very quickly. So if you are somebody who's running Suicide Masteries, he can be quite scary matchup, because if you're going to make a mistake against him, you're going to pay for it. But in itself, the fight isn't overly too hard in most situations, I would say. Or if you're worried, you can just always use an immune champion and then you have literally no problem. Okay, so now we're going to talk about utility. So his crazy damage could kind of technically be mentioned as part of his utility kit, because he really does melt down opponents extremely quickly, while poison, bleed, so on and so forth. He's also one of the few characters that has relatively simple and easy access to poison debuffs, thus he is one of the kind of like potential answers for acid wash nodes, which is becoming more and more frequent in Marvel Construct Champions, and it's one of the more annoying nodes overall. Now, his main piece of utility, however, definitely is the ability accuracy reduction, because if he's awakened, effectively at low sig level you need 4 neurotoxins, at higher sig level you're going to suffice with 3 neurotoxins, can completely shut down any and all abilities of your opponents. And that includes offensive, defensive, passive nodes, everything. Basically, when you have 4 neurodes on opponent, you are sailing through every single fight. No evades, no auto blocks, no nothing, no healing. Obviously, as mentioned, neurotoxin also serves as a passive heal block. However, you do need to have access to debuffs in order to place this passive heal block, so keep that in mind. But all in all, he's an insanely useful character, mainly due to his potent ability accuracy reduction. He absolutely melts annoying champions like Ant-Man, for instance. Even with 1 or 2 neurotoxins, he's very seldom going to glance your hits, and that means you can be able to absolutely melt him down. He's fantastic against spider heroes, so on and so forth, and to this day he maintains a significant amount of relevance in the game, largely due to the 2 main factors combined here. Extremely crazy damage with very, very potent ability accuracy reduction is kind of like formula victory for a very success and a quick fight, an enjoyable character to play. That is also part of the reason why he's so popular, is because he melts opponents so gosh damn quickly. Right, okay, so notable uses. I would basically be able to list pretty much everything here. Variant 1, 2, 3, Act 6, AQ, AW. Obviously, again, how to keep in mind that you need to look at your path ahead and see where the poison immunity is, where the bleed immunity is, and which fights you can and cannot use Archangel for, because, again, if opponent is bleed immune, Archangel is an Iron Patriot, effectively. He's an absolute dud you will never want to use in a fight. However, if there are not these immunities involved, he will absolutely shred through all of these fights, and I have personally used him in, yes, variant 1, 2, and 3, because in variant 2, heavy attacks cannot get glanced, so he gets by the global node. For variant 3, even though he isn't a tech champion, his crazy damage output still makes up for it, and you can use him relatively simply. Act 6, he shuts down a lot of annoying stuff when it goes to, I don't know, away champions, Spideys, when it goes to taunts or whatever else. So yes, Archangel can absolutely brutalize a lot of content. But one important thing to keep in mind when using Archangel is that he isn't really a great solo artist. He will always need somebody in a backup that you want to use for these fights, where you have the bleed immunity, where you have the poison immunity. I personally prefer to look at Archangel as somebody who I like to throw in my team in order to make specific fights simpler, largely because how quickly and easy he finishes those fights, and largely because he does not require any synergies at all to function properly, so he's very easily and simply added to any team I can go in the quest with. I don't necessarily look at him as like my main hero of the quest, which quite often goes to, I don't know, Ghost, Nick Fury, Aegon, or whoever. But when it comes to some really tricky fights, Archangel's always there to kind of like save me and serve and answer these problems or several fights. Now, I was under the mindset that I did not want to rank up my Archangel to rank 5 for quite a long time, because up until like 6.2, I felt that even at rank 3, rank 4, he can accomplish everything I want from him. And he was always a very useful champion to have, but because of his super high damage output, if you played carefully, you could still win the fights that you absolutely had to use Archangel. But that kind of changed in 6.2, 3, and 4, where all of these opponent attack and health levels got increased exponentially, and yeah, then it wasn't as simple. And second of all, I realized that I want to use Archangel as much as I can just because of how quickly he finishes these fights. So thus I went from looking at Archangel and having to bring him in my team as kind of like a burden in order to answer a specific fight. I started looking at him as a privilege, that I'm happy that I can use him for as many fights as I can, just to absolutely shred through opponents as quickly as possible. And yeah, I have absolutely no regrets having taken him up to rank 5 currently. Now, his synergies, as I mentioned before, he doesn't rely on any synergies, and he also doesn't have any worthwhile notable synergies at all. There are no unique synergies. He has some power gain synergies like Psylocke, but there's literally nothing worthwhile or interesting to discuss. And that is also kind of an upside in this situation, because he doesn't rely on any synergy partners, right? Okay, and let's quickly issue the verdict on Archangel and then have some gameplay. So he is one of the MCOC staples, making a comeback. And again, that is a very important thing, because I think Archangel is actually more important today than he probably has ever been, largely due to the fact that Kabam has shifted their focus on Incinerate, Shock, and Cold Snap immunities, and far less champions are coming out that are Bleed and or Poison immune. So he's kind of having more and more champions that he works absolutely fantastic against, and you can already notice this in, for instance, 6.4, 6.3. There are more and more paths where he can absolutely save your life and save you many different many units and a lot of headache. So verdict is situational but amazing champion for any roster. I do generally believe that Archangel is one of those champions that can benefit any single account. No matter what and who you have ranked up on your account already, Archangel should and be always somehow available as well. Because when the time comes for it, there's probably going to be a dozen of fights where he is by far the best option. Right, all of those things being said, I don't want to keep you guys too long here, so let's jump to the main scene in the game. So I do have Suicide Masteries active. What happened to my screen? I apologize. Somehow I seem to have lost the contact. This is embarrassing. I need new cable. Come on, there we go. Back we are. Okay, so I'm going to use Archangel. I do have Suicide Masteries active, so obviously my attack is going to be slightly boosted. My synergies are fairly basic. It's just like a mutant crit team plus like Psylocke power gain synergy. Effectively, they don't do much. But let's see what's going to happen here. So at this point, I have 2 Neuros. Block bait, heavy attack, 4 Neuros, perfect. I'm gonna drop level 1 there. I probably should have accompanied that level 1 with a heavy attack beforehand, but hey, doing our best here. I should not have landed those hits, just unnecessarily increasing my hit count, I suppose. Uh-oh, I thought I'm gonna make it within that stun timer. My bad, not a big deal. Haven't gotten too good of an RNG, or I'm just not playing too well this time, but hey. Again, same thing. Oh, I'm being too greedy. Well, he's on 5 Neuros, so he technically should be pretty much dead now at this point. I can just watch the life drain away from this guy. How dare you? 1% really? Okay, we're done. So how many hits are that? As we obviously Archangel is extremely quick killer, so just 53 hits. It's not the best result. I have definitely gotten under 50 hit kills with Archangel, and definitely much more smooth ones. But hey, for the sake of video continuity, I do not want to re-record it. However, now let's take attention to this fight. This fight is against somebody who is in fact poison immune. So we should be losing all this damage. Everybody says like you can't use Archangel if opponent's poison and or bleed immune. Well, actually, still gonna be doing just fine against poison immune opponents. Not as good, obviously, but it's not gonna be too bad. Just keep on spamming those heavy attacks, keep on placing bleeds on opponent, and even though you cannot place neuros or poisons, the bleeds alone are putting in solid amount of work. It's obviously not going to be as quick, you're going to have more hits, but we can see that we consistently maintain like 8-10 bleeds. And if you have Deep Wounds Mastery active, obviously all of them get extended durations as well. And the thing about Archangel is he has higher chance to apply bleed if opponent's already bleeding. Whoopsie, we made a mistake there. My bad. This is actually going to make it more interesting because we got hit. We're going to have to wait till end so we can see the final hit count. So we get 53 against that Winter Soldier, which arguably definitely was not the best fight example. We can see how many hits against this Captain Marvel with her poison immunity. Fortunately, no crits there. And keep in mind, Winter Soldier fight, Archangel also had class advantage, so that gave him 20% increased attack. But here we can see 98. So yes, his damage output does go up. However, a champion that can kill Realm of Legends opponent in 98 hits is not too shabby. It's definitely not a slow kind of like damage dealer. There are many champions who take far longer to kill opponents at their best, and this is Archangel already kind of like not having access to a huge part of his damage, still managed to get down Realm of Legends opponent under those 100 hits. So I think that kind of will also lead us toward the finish of the video. Now I can jump down to the previous scene, and if you have made it thus far in the video, then obviously you need to be rewarded with a nice gif of Baby Yoda having a drink from his sippy cup. Now, if for whatever reason you are a very special case and do not enjoy Baby Yoda having a drink from his sip, or you do not enjoy today's video, then you can please show yourself out. I'm sure you can manage that all by yourself. However, I am done for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video once again, and if you did, then hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit all of the good buttons, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya.